St. Mike's really does try and stick to their dictum of teaching goodness, discipline, and knowledge. And it does sound corny when you hear it like that, but it is something that they really try to infuse in the students.
Hi, it's Teru Ikeda at Our Kids, and I just spoke to Michael Tighe, a St. Michael's College alumnus, about the impact that the school has had on him as an adult and the culture at an all-boys private high school. What are you up to now, and what school did you go to before St. Mike's?
Before St. Mike's, I went
Or
to
after St. Mike's.
what
So
university? Or what
yeah,
did you do after? I
yeah.
went to Queen's University for basically the arts. So I took sociology and history, and then I did a master's in industrial relations, which is basically HR and labor relations. And then I did that with the intention of wanting to make a meaningful difference in people's lives through a medium like business. And so I looked to go into that and found I was actually better off doing that in sales. And then since then, I've decided to get more into psychology. So I'm going back to school to look to see if I can marry psychology with business and also do the more traditional psychology route as well.
Okay, and how long have you been doing sales for?
About 8 years. So
Oh,
I graduated in St. Mike's in 2006. Then I went to Queen's 2006, 2010 for undergrad, 11 for my master's, and then traveled for almost a year and worked a bit, and then got into sales shortly thereafter from then on. Yeah.
and I know you said your first choice or first post-secondary school was Queens after St. Mike's.
Yeah.
How do you think your experience at St. Mike's impacted your choice for Queens and the area of study as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think um, the best way to answer that, I think, for me right now, is we look at kind of where we are at today. And uh, I think what St. Mike's did really well was it did get you thinking about the bigger concepts. It did get you thinking about who you were as an individual, what you wanted. It was a bit of a microcosm of a vacuum for developing habits and tendencies as it relates to, for me at least, it ended up being sports in school. So having an active participation of, a gym that was readily available, you could go to at lunch to work out and play ping pong during lunch or what have you with friends. And then also because there was a big focus on education and ended up being something that you try and figure out what you're actually interested in. And I think that was reflected in the fact that I went into, sociology and history specifically. Um, and yeah, I think, being able to understand who you are as an individual at that age is hard enough for a high school.
No, for sure. And you mentioned sports a bit there. I'm just wondering, like, what kind of what did your resume or CV look like when you were at St. Mike's, if you can remember?
In terms of before when I applied to go to St. Mike's or after leaving St. Mike's or during?
In your you were there for how long? How many years were you at St. Mike's for?
I was there from grade 7 to 12, so 6 years.
Oh, okay, so yeah, like I mean, it doesn't have to be year by year, but like the gist of it, like what did your junior school plus high school resume, look like?
Like while I was at St. Mike's.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mainly played volleyball. I was on the volleyball team for 2 years, and I ran cross country a bit. Was on the cross country team, I think, in either grade 11 or grade 12. You definitely did see that the best. Not you did see some overlap in terms of like those who were really good athletes were one of the best athletes on a number of teams, and some of them were even pretty academically inclined as well. And I think that your original question about why Queens after St. Mike's, I think I was looking for a place that had a culture of work hard, play hard. This idea and notion of getting a lot of spending a lot of energy in sports, and then as a result of that, being able to focus in school and apply some of the techniques from one to the other. And I think that that is something that you see at Queens as well.
And then, were you involved in any other extracurriculars aside from sports?
Yes, I was on a number of different kind of committees. Not a lot. It's a good question. I wasn't thinking about prior to the interview, but it wasn't like the writers club. I was at a workout club where you're just kind of in a club where you attend after school, things of that nature. Nothing too time consuming. We did have more volunteer hours that we had to complete to graduate at St. Mike's, and so I was heavily involved in working at this place called Out of the Cold at the local church that I went to help with the homeless. So that took up a lot of extracurricular time in terms of all the extracurricular time that I took up. It took up a fair chunk.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And what did a typical day at St. Mike's look like?
So it depends on the grade, and I'm sure it's probably changed a lot since I went there. Again, this was way back, but grades 7 and 8, they tend to bulk all the courses together. So you're in the same class with everybody. You have art, music, and gym, as well as history and English and science, 3 different sciences: biology, chemistry, and physics. And then as you move throughout, you also have religion every year. And in grade 11, with the option of choosing either religion or philosophy. I think that was maybe grade 12. I was one of 2 students that actually decided to do religion and philosophy, which obviously in a big class size, it's not a popular decision, but I enjoyed it. So again, to get back to your original question, there is quite a lot of flexibility as you move through later grades within St. Mike's. I was able to pick the ones that were interested to me, but then there were some hard, fast rules you had to stick with as well, mandatory courses and whatnot.
Right. And then before grade 7, what school were you at before St. Mike's?
I attended Armor Heights Public School.
Okay.
Right by the 401 in Wilson, more or less.
Okay.
Yeah, it was there grade 2 to 6. And
okay.
Yeah, it was a good school. I enjoyed it. But my mom's dad really loved St. Mike's, and my mom's father, being my grandfather, and my father both had heard good things about it, so decided to go there. It was all.
Do you remember if you had any, say or choice in what school you were going to when you were, at the school on 401 in Wilson? Do you remember deciding on St. Mike's or what?
Yeah, I mean, I remember at the time that because my mom, her side of the family, her dad and his brother went there, and it was a kind of a legacy type of school that way, and there was a strong respect for the tradition and the kind of the direction of the school in terms of instilling character. And St. Mike's really does try and stick to their dictum of teaching goodness, discipline, and knowledge. And it does sound corny when you hear it like that, but it is something that they really try to infuse in the students. And I do think that is reflected, especially having been out in the working world for quite a while, and you have a lot of companies talk about their visions and their goals and things. And having had the experience outside of the school, I can say that institution at St. Mike's does really try to maintain that.
And if there's one thing that you had to pick, what would you say you most appreciated about St. Mike's?
So again, kind of going back, alluding to the previous point, I think it really is about recognizing where people are at that age and what they feel they need to support them in that process of growth and development. So for someone who's, reaching between the ages of, I guess, in my case, uh, like 13 to 18 or 12 to 17, that kind of age.
Mm-hmm.
Really instilling principles of working hard, um, understanding the importance of kind of philosophy and digging into some of those religious principles, giving you kind of that mental scaffolding of kind of life direction in terms of what's important, what's because they infuse philosophy within religion and try and help you understand those core concepts while also obviously building up skills you'll need in your future, uh, you know, to have a career. So I would say that focus honestly was a big part of it. Obviously, it being an all boys school has an impact on it as well. There's pros and cons of that. The best and worst thing about St. Mike's is that it's an all boys school. So being able to create that kind of focus where there isn't any distractions and there's a hyper focus on sports and academics and not much else. I think that does create a certain environment where, on the one side, you've got kids who do take learning and sports very seriously and are kind of on course with that. But then in the arts, I remember English teacher talking about the fact that when we had a poetry kind of section in our English class, none of the guys really took it seriously. And he was mentioning that it was hard to get our attention on that thing because there's no girls at St. Mike's, but that was before they had the auditorium, and it was before they really had a lot of musical dramas that I think they have a lot more partnerships with. I think, for example, St. Mary's. So I think they've recognized that gap and have tried to address that. But I think creating a structure for growth and development is where they start, and they try to instill some of those principles, and then also not having girls and just having all boys does create some focus.
No, absolutely. And you may have just answered it there, but what would you say differentiates St. Mike's from other private schools that families may consider choosing?
It's tough, obviously. I mean, I only experienced one, and I just heard through others' experiences what it's like at other schools. At the time when I went to St. Mike's, it was affordable. I don't know what the case and what the landscape is now financially, economically, in terms of private schools and their expense relative to, upper middle class or middle class income, etc. But we were kind of known as the school that didn't have a chip on its shoulder when it came to some private schools get notorious for attracting students who are from exclusive socioeconomic strata. And I think that St. Mike's did a decent job of not abiding by that completely. So there was still quite a mix, which I think is important. Obviously, everybody at the school wasn't at the bottom of the socioeconomic ladder. But I think that does differentiate the school. I think sports is massively a big differentiator for St. Mike's. At the time, we didn't have necessarily the best equipment, but we were the most determined. We had a lot of really strong history and tradition of being, quote unquote, the best academic or athletic school. We obviously had an arena. We had a massive gym that had just started when I came in there, that's still there today, and a massive football field donated by Eugene Melnick, who was an alumni to the school, which I got to experience for the last couple of years of school when I was there. So I think those really speak to some of the areas that they're really well known for. Now, I don't know since then if they're also really well known for the arts, since they did have a massive expansion in that arena. But yeah, at the time, that's kind of what it was known for.
Cool. And if St. Mike's could be personified, like if it were to become a single person, could you describe its personality in 3 words?
I'm, as you can tell, a man of more than 3 words typically. It's going to be tough for me. They're typically like we had mascots for some of the sports that we had, and there was a certain type of attitude at St. Mike's, which is pretty classically a boisterous, confident, athletically inclined type of character. And I think that definitely rubs off on people who go through that. So I'd probably leave it at that.
Okay. And you did mention earlier about the emphasis that St. Mike's placed on like hard work and discipline.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, like, from your perspective, what would you say or what would you say is the school's highest value in actual practice?
Well, what's interesting about St. Mike's is you have a lot of teachers who are alumni to the school themselves, and you have a good number of faculty when I was there that came from a line of such lineage. So you'd have kind of the ability to maintain a focus on things like, their motto, and it was built into the structure of the curriculum. It was also built into the attitude and the character within the school. So I was there. The VP was Mr. Pagano, and he maintained kind of like a rule with an iron fist, but also had a gentle side to him as well. And it was this kind of attitude that it coalesced nicely with both sports and academics, that if you put in the hard work, it's going to be recognized and reinforced and congratulated. But that was really a going attitude there. So I would say that they do try and do a really good job of instilling this idea of goodness, discipline, and knowledge in it. And it sounds contrived, but as I said, like coming out of that experience and then going into all these other institutions and working world, I do feel like they did a decent job of that.
Okay, cool. And then what would you say students and families would find surprising about St. Mike's?
I mean, when I was there, like, because there's no girls there, I think there is a very boisterous attitude. I know that, like, we kind of, anytime girls came to sell tickets to a dance, there'd be a bit of an uproar. I think that was probably the best way to describe it. I think, I don't know, it's tough, it's like, it's hard to identify what it is about it that's different from the outside world when you're in it. Obviously, there's a uniform every day. Teachers are always making sure that people have their top button done up and your tie up tight. But you also build pretty decent relationships and friendships with the teachers. And yeah, it was a good experience. I'm struggling to answer that question. Unfortunately, I don't know what. Like, I think it's a pretty transparent experience. Like, I don't think you're going to go in there and find anything ludicrously different than you'd expect.
Right. And then from your experience, is there anything that you were surprised by?
No, I feel like I kind of got it pretty quick what it was all about, and they reinforce that, and that stays consistent throughout. And yeah, you kind of find your spot and you build a good group of friends. Candidly, I'm still in touch with a lot of friends that I made there, and a bunch of us lived at Queen's together. I think what's consistent about St. Mike's, and not unlike probably most private schools, is a massive focus on attending a university and getting a university education. It was definitely in the 90s that people left St. Mike's and attended university. So I think there was at least 33 or 34 people from my graduating year who were at Queen's in my year. So we all stayed friends. I think that was in some ways expected, in some ways surprising. And what I mean by that is, if I can unpack that, I think part of the appeal, quote unquote, of private schools is this ability to grow a really strong network. But I think that is something that, it is quite organic and not contrived, and therefore a bit surprising in how authentic it becomes.
Right. And you mentioned that there's a lot of students there that exude confidence or pretty boisterous.
Yeah.
But would you say that's the typical student at St. Mike's? Like, what would a typical St. Mike's student look like if you were to paint a picture?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked, because obviously every school's got a poster child type of identity or framework or archetype, and that's certainly there at St. Mike's, but it's not all encompassing. There's certainly a variety of different types of kids who attend St. Mike's, whether you're good at sports or just academics or the arts. We had a couple classmates that were really good in music, one of which went on to make a band, and another guy went on to make a video production company. I think the type of person you'll find at the school is going to be reflected upon the diversity of materials and experiences and resources that they have to build upon while they're at the school. So we had a pretty decent music program that we just got when I started attending there. And as a result of that, some of my students really benefited from that. Like a sax player has really gone on forward from that, and then a band that I mentioned previously. So I'd say there's a range, right? And I think it, again, is due to what I was mentioning a bit earlier as well, with the sense of a consistent focus on academics and sports, and having that space to develop skill sets and interests. Obviously, there's a heavy focus on academics, given the fact that the direction of St. Mike's is towards university. I don't know if that's different now, but yeah, I think that's kind of the types of people you'd find there. But by no means was everybody boisterous. By no means were you either super smart or super athletic. There was people who were both. People who had nothing to do with that. They were more focused on the arts. Definitely that less so, given the fact that there was more resources for those former situations. Does that answer the question?
No, it does. It does. And it seems like your experience at St. Mike's was positive.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering how you think, or do you think your experience at St. Mike's shaped who you are as a person today? And if so, how so?
Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest part about why I accepted the interview, and not that I would decline it, but I think that was the thing that I wanted to talk to the most, was because I think that's kind of the biggest question, right? Is if people are going to spend the money on that type of institution, what's the value add that they can't just get from a public school and things of that nature? I think what was nice about St. Mike's was their focus on some of those foundational principles, right? So whether it was philosophy-based, religion-based, combination of the two, they had us reading, for example, Man's Search for Meaning in grade 11 or 12, written by Viktor Frankl, who is a psychiatrist who went to Auschwitz and became one of the most well-known books of all time. Those are the types of thought strategies that I think are very, very important to focus on and think about, and a lot of people don't actually get access to those types of materials. Like, we read Plato's Republic, things of that nature, and it just gets you to wrestle with these concepts early and starts that germination period early, which I think is important, and I think it expands the scope of what success looks like, which is going to be different from what you get from media or what you get from our culture today.
Right. And as you reflect back, if there's one thing that you had to change about the school, what would that be?
Yeah, I think that was part of what I was kind of getting at about the arts piece, in terms of what my English teacher mentioned about lack of contribution in some of the more artistic areas of the school, given the fact that it was so well known for kind of that male-dominated focus on sports and academics, being able to infuse some more creativity and more interaction with, sister schools. I think they're in a better position to do that if they aren't already doing that with the massive theater that they've built and the resources accordingly. And I think that I think that's kind of representative of the ability to add some robustness to things that they're already doing pretty well. I think to your earlier point about an identity of what a typical student looks like at the school, right? If someone's not good at sports and they're not good at academics, then what are they going to be good at St. Mike's? I think the new focus on that theater speaks to the fact that there are other areas to compete in, so to speak, and not that everything's a competition, but there's a variety of different areas where one can get involved to build themselves and discover and build upon some interests and skill sets.
Okay.
So I would say being more well-rounded as an institution is more the answer to that question, which I think that they've done since then, and being able to have more interaction with sister schools and things of that nature.
Mm-hmm. And then, given that you're no longer at the school, do you think your perspective about St. Mike has changed or evolved over time?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's funny the amount of time outside of the school, you do think differently about the experiences X amount of years coming out of it. So, I would say as you get older, you have a more respect and understanding for what they were trying to do at the time. So what I'm getting at with these comments about philosophy and other such books, I think, these are concepts that do really dictate one's direction in life, and they're important concepts to wrestle with. People have to make decisions, and I think that they did try to focus on the really important things. Now it's obviously up to the student to execute on really taking that time to appreciate what it is, which is really tough when you're like 14, 15 or 17 to really understand how fundamental these concepts are.
Mm-hmm.
But when you think about when you were 15 or 16 and your ability to focus and understand and take in certain things, how impressionable you are, and yet how difficult it can be to get you to be open to growing in the right areas, the right kind of places. I think St. Mike's did a decent job of that.
Okay. And would you recommend St. Mike's to other students?
Yeah, I think it's safe to say I would.
Right. And then what would be the 3 biggest reasons why that student should enroll?
The biggest, one thing, your relationship with exercise is important.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to express that side of oneself it's great to get started early. I was more athletically inclined, so I'm a little biased that way. Secondly, academics. And thirdly, I think is really just diving into who you are, taking the time to really figure out what it is that you want and what it is that makes you, and taking the time at that kind of incubated period to grow and develop, which is hard, but that's the whole point.
Absolutely. And what would be a word of advice that you would have for a family that's considering enrolling their son into St. Mike's?
What kind of advice? Like
what should they know? Like if you could speak to them, to that parent, what would you say are one of the reasons why they should encourage their son to enroll at St. Mike's?
Right. So more like in terms of why St. Mike's over another institution, or what to do when you're there. What would, I guess?
Like more of the why St. Mike's over school A or B?
I mean, I think some of the it's definitely more difficult in some ways, right? To go to a private school that I took exams from grade 7 onwards. That wasn't the case for the public school system until you hit grade 9, and they're pretty difficult when it came to math and English. They were pretty tough on marking, and they had a high standard in some capacity. But then when I got to university, I was well prepared, and it wasn't a massive difference there in terms of my ability to meet the needs of the university. So I think for the parents, it's trying to get that message to their child or their son that good things are worth working towards. And I'm not saying that St. Mike's is the most perfect school, but it's a good school. And I think if the parent has done a good job of understanding what their child is interested in, and they can speak to the ways in which going to a private school like St. Mike's will help them get to where they want to go or build upon, then I think that advice will come naturally. I think, specific to St. Mike's, that advice of what's going to get them in there or appreciate it is really trying to get the parent to understand where their son wants to go, and just talking about how St. Mike's is going to be able to be a great stepping stone for them.
If there is a student that's going to enroll in St. Mike's, say this coming September, what's one word of advice you would have for him, and also what type of expectations should he have going in?
It's probably the only time in his life that he's going to be surrounded by so many men, right? And
Yeah.
and that's kind of an interesting time. It's kind of strange in some ways, but there's obviously female teachers. There's, again, sister schools. There's going to be activities and engagements with that, other women. But in large part, being able to understand what it means to relate to fellow men and to have that collegial feeling with other men, and be able to compete in a variety of different fashions. I think that's more of a natural inclination for men, and not that it doesn't happen with women as well, but I think that's a very exciting thing, and it's also something that's very full on right from the get-go, right? And being able to navigate that is important and also exciting. So, having the parents, helping their son understand that and be able to navigate that, I think would give him a big leg up in knowing what getting along with a bunch of guys looks like and knowing how to do that.